Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the three players that we have participating in the NFL Combine. It's set to begin on Monday, but the on-the-field drills don't start till Thursday. Our first player will be participating on Friday, and then the last two will be participating on Saturday. We're going to be breaking down where their draft stock is currently and what they'll need to do in the Combine to increase their draft stock. And do I think these guys will all get drafted? And if I do, which ones do I think will get drafted? Which ones won't get drafted? All of that good stuff. But before we get into it, please do us a huge favor and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. But let's go ahead and jump into our first player, which is Kamal Hadden. All right, so we're using NFLDraftBuzz.com. I really like it because it's uniform and it gives us a good overall look at our prospects. Okay, so Kamal Hadden listed at 6'1", 197 pounds. And the NFL average for a quarterback size is 6'1.5", 194 pounds. Sometimes their heights can be fabricated, especially coming out of college. Okay, like the schools will tend to kind of add an inch or two. But I do think that Kamal Hadden actually might be a little bit closer to about 6'2" than he is to 6'1". So he's definitely going to pass the first test of the combine, which is his size. He's going to be bigger than the average corner coming into this year's draft, and that's great. Now, to the right, we're seeing his 2023 stats. He had 3 interceptions for 33 yards, 7 passes defended, 19 tackles, and 13 of those tackles were solo. Keep in mind, he did go down with an injury early on in the season, so those numbers don't necessarily look outstanding, but he was a very good player while he was healthy for us this past season. Now, over here to his overall player rating, they've got him at an 81.8. I would say he's got to be closer to about like an 88 overall. He's a really, really good player, guys. I mean, from top to bottom, he can do it all, especially if you're looking at him as an NFL prospect. So that's my one gripe right there with the ratings. And then to the right, they've got the cornerback position ratings according to their site, and they've got him at number 32. I think that he's a lot better than that. At the end of the day, I think he's going to end up being a top 10 cornerback in this year's draft. And then to the right, we're seeing his 40 time is listed, as a 4.42. So I think that that's about what he runs. And, if he's fully healthy and if he's been training, which I'm sure that he has the potential to be able to run a little bit faster than that. And that's a huge deal for any skill position, but especially playing cornerback. You have to have great straight line speed, and really all of your tests, all of your timing tests need to look really, really good, because that's the most athletic position on the field. And we'll talk about all of the NFL averages here in just a minute. But let's continue on with this profile, okay? To the right, what y'all are going to see are the cornerback rankings according to the site. It's the top 10. I don't necessarily agree with their top 10, but back over to the left, what we're seeing is the offense's rating versus Kamal Hadden, and it's at an 81%. So that's at about a B. I would say that you really want, for the opposing team to be at about like a C level. Okay, that would make a lot more sense. And again, man, just take these ratings that they have on this site with the grain of salt. I'm not so much here for the ratings. I'm just more here for the continuity of it and for the overall profiles. But if it was me, okay, I would say that offenses probably were around, maybe like a 76 to a 77 versus Kamal Hadden. And I'm sure that that would be encompassing, versus the pass and also, in run support. So I think that he, was a pretty solid player overall. Now, moving on down, we've got the quarterback's rating when targeted versus Kamal Hadden. And this one is going to be very important. It's at a 31.7. I would say that that's pretty accurate. Teams were not completing a bunch of passes versus Kamal Hadden this past season. He was the most shut down cornerback on our entire team. He was one of the better, cover guys in the entire SEC. And we saw how much of a drop off even our pass rush took once Kamal Hadden went down. So I agree with that 100%. Now down to the tackling, listed at 69%. We do, obviously we all do remember the tackle that Kamal Hadden missed versus Florida. That might have been the catalyst to them winning the game. It really busted things open, but all he had to do right there is wrap up. So if I'm looking at this, as an NFL GM, scout, or coach, I'm going to say, hey, is he going to be fundamentally sound once he gets to the league, or do we have some coaches that can teach him that? But really the first thing is he going to be capable of making tackles? And I definitely think that he is, because he's going to be a bigger NFL corner. So on down to the next one is run defense. It's very similar to tackling, but run defense is going to more than likely be encompassing, the leverage that he's playing with, getting off blocks, and the pursuit to the ball carrier. They've got him at a 62. And I don't think that that's fair. I'd say he's probably closer to about like a C minus. So I'd give him about a 74 in that category. Now for coverage, he's listed at 88% overall. I think that that's pretty solid. Zone coverage, he's at an 82%. And man coverage, he is at an 86%. I would move his man coverage up to about like a 93. I think that he can play man-to-man with anybody in the entire world. He's just that type of an athlete, and he's that good in coverage. And then his zone coverage at an 82, I would say he might be able to get bumped up just a taste to about like an 85. He was really good in coverage, period. So his overall rating for me in coverage would be, like in the low 90s. All right, so let's continue to move on down here. And his draft projection, according to this website, is in the 5th round. I've got him going a little bit higher than that. We'll touch on that at the end of his segment. And down here, okay, you've got his high school ratings. ESPN had him as a 3-star, 24/7 Sports, and Rivals.com also had him as a 3-star. And if we scroll down just a little bit more, we're seeing some player comparisons. And Riley Moss, Jalen Amore Davis, and Paulson Adebo are the 3 players that this site compares Kamal Hadden to. All right, now on to NFLsavant.com. Right here, we're going to be looking at the NFL averages, for all of the tests that these players will be going through at the combine. Okay, we're going to skip the first one because I'm not quite sure if they're talking about the round that each position is typically getting picked at, or if they're talking about the pick. It's just kind of hard to decipher what that means. But we'll start right here at the average 40 time. Okay, we said that Kamal Hadden was projected to be about a 4.42. And over to the left, you can see the cornerbacks. Average in the NFL is a 4.47. Obviously, Kamal Hadden will be coming in up under the average for the league, and that's a really good thing, okay? Again, I can't emphasize this enough. It's so important for these skill guys to test well at the combine. Let's continue to scroll. All right, so now we've got the bench press, okay? So this is 225 pounds. How many reps can you do it? The cornerbacks are to the left in the light blue, and it says that the average is about 15 reps. I think that Kamal Hadden will be able to surpass that because he's a bigger cornerback. Usually the bigger players are going to be stronger, and we also have a great strength and conditioning staff. So let's continue to scroll on down. Average vertical by position, and cornerbacks are to the right in the purple, okay, like in that pinkish purple color. And it says that the average vert is 36.2 inches. I think that Kamal Hadden will be able to exceed that as well. I would say that he might get somewhere around 37 to 38 inches, and that's going to be really, really good at the combine. And I didn't give you a number for the bench, but I think that he would, probably get somewhere around 16 to 17 reps. Let's come on down to the 3 cone. This is a good indicator of change of direction, getting in and out of breaks. It's going to be extremely important for cornerbacks and all secondary players. The cornerbacks are to the left. It says that the average time is a 6.8. I think that Kamal Hadden could definitely beat that. I'm thinking that he might come in at about like a 6.75 because he has really good straight line speed, but he also is great changing directions. He gets in and out of his breaks very, very effortlessly. So I think that he's going to look good in that drill. Now, on to the last one, which is the broad jump. This is a good indicator of, just overall explosiveness in athlete. And the cornerbacks are to the far right. It says that the average is 121.9 inches. I also think that Kamal Hadden has a good chance to surpass that as well. And now some of y'all might be saying, well, you've got him kind of, beating out all of these things. Keep in mind, these are the averages. I think that Kamal Hadden is going to be an above average athlete. Usually whenever the athletes are going to be testing faster than the average 40 time, the rest of these, testing drills will also kind of go the exact same way. So I think that Kamal Hadden should have a great performance at the combine with all of these testing metrics. All right, so overall for Kamal Hadden, I think that he's got the prototype size, the prototype speed. He's great in man-to-man coverage, and that's the most important thing to these NFL teams. You have to be able to play man in the NFL. We talk about that a lot on this channel. But he's also smart enough to be able to test well in some of the off-the-field drills and interviews, things like that. I think he's going to do very, very well there. He's a confident guy. You've got to be confident playing out there on an island. And he'll pass all of those tests, I believe, with flying colors. There's no real off-the-field issues that I can think of with him. Clearly, one of the biggest things, though, is going to be him being able to pass whatever physicals that each team will want to put him through, and also at the combine to start things off. Will he have to participate in a pro day? I don't think that he necessarily will, because he's going to knock the combine portion of it out of the park. And once you do good, especially in the testing drills, you don't want to redo them and then put a bad time out there. So if all of his times look good, then he probably won't be doing much at the pro day, except for the on the field drills. He might kind of go through that some. And I think he's going to look great in that at the combine as well. If it's one thing that I can tell you about Coach Martinez, his defensive backs always look great going through their drills. That's something that we've seen just looking at spring practice. You know, you look at the clips, literally it's textbook form from top to bottom. So he should blow that out of the water too. Again, he's going to look really good in his transitions, getting in and out of breaks, and his hips are very, very fluid. So I think that he's going to blow the combine up, and we're going to see his draft stock skyrocket. I think that he is a potential third round pick, depending on what the picks look like before that. But that's the grade that I have for him. I could see him maybe going a little bit higher, maybe in the second round or maybe even in the fourth round. But I would be shocked if he ends up going any later than that. All right, so the next player is Joe Milton, and he will be participating on Saturday. I believe that those drills start at 2 o'clock. So he's listed at 6'5", 235 pounds. The average size for an NFL quarterback is 6'2.5" and 219 pounds. So he's definitely going to be passing that. He's got the size, he's got the stature, he's got the arm strength. And I definitely feel like someone's going to take a chance on Joe Milton. You can see his stats over there to the right. Doesn't really wow you, okay, especially in this system. There's a couple of things that he needs to work on, and we'll talk about that as we kind of go through his profile. If you look at his overall player rating on this site, it's at 80.1. I think that that's very fair. He's about in that range for me. He is a B- to a solid B. And then his position ranking is number 10. That's a pretty solid spot for him. He should be a top 10 quarterback. If y'all watched the video that we did on this past week, I said that I had Joe Milton at number 8 overall as a quarterback. And then to the right, they've got his projected 40 time at a 4.78. And we will get into the average 40 times and all that good stuff for quarterbacks here in just a moment. Now, let's scroll on down. And like we said before, to the right are going to be the top 10 prospects according to this site. And you can see some more measurables with Joe Milton. And you can see that he is pretty high up in the percentile, ratings for all of that stuff. And that looks really good to an NFL team. But let's continue to scroll. Let's get into some of his individual grades, all right? So the defense's rating versus Joe Milton, according to this site, is 75%. I would say that that's pretty accurate, okay? You might be able to kind of push that up just a little bit to maybe about like a 77, 78, something like that, just because, he does tend to miss some passes. And I don't know if they're going to, add that into however they're factoring this, or if it is what they're doing to stop Joe Milton. On down, we've got his arm release speed. Now, this is very, very important for a quarterback, especially in the NFL. The game is played so fast. The windows are so tight. You've kind of got to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, and then you've got to be accurate. But you're going to have a very quick arm release. And that's something that we have not talked about very much with Joe Milton, but he definitely does. I agree with the 90% that they have him at. Now, they've got his short passing rating at 73%. So for me, short passes will be anywhere from the line of scrimmage to maybe about 15 yards out. I think that he's higher than 73% there. Okay, he is usually pretty accurate. He does need to kind of take some speed off of the ball sometimes. Okay, maybe lead his wide receivers just a taste. But a 73, okay, that's like a D. So I don't think that he's that bad. I would give him about a 79 to an 80. Okay, so like a C plus to a B minus is where I think he should be for the short passes. Now, for the medium passes, these are the most important for the NFL. It's the intermediate passes, and he's listed as a 79%. I think that that's too high for Joe Milton. This is what he needs to work on the most, and this is pretty much all about timing, anticipation, and touch. And again, okay, us as Vol fans, we know that that's where Joe Milton needs the most work at. But I would take it down from a 79 and put it to about a 75, or maybe even at like a 74. I think that he's a C minus, almost on the verge of being a D in that category. Now onto the long passing. It's at 67%, and for me, that is way too low. Joe Milton's got too strong of an arm for you to put him anywhere up under a C. That should be his floor, just because he could throw the ball 90 yards. So for that reason, I've got him starting off at about a 74 to a 75. And he does tend to miss some deep passes sometimes, okay? Now, like we've talked about so many different times, a team is going to fall in love with Joe Milton, and they're going to say, hey, I can fix him. And I think that we probably all have our thoughts on what he needs to do better. And, it's easy to feel that way with a quarterback that has that much arm talent. I would say that if he just puts a little bit more air under his passes, then he will be able to complete a lot more of them. So I would put him at about a 79 in that category. Now on down to the rush and scramble, 81% is what they have him at. I think that might be, kind of close to being right. I think it could be a little bit high, though, just because Joe Milton doesn't really like to run. Now, he is a big guy that can move, so he's a nightmare to tackle, especially on the outside for some of the smaller players. But since he's not one of the guys that's very willing to run, it's kind of hard to gauge on, do we want to put him up at an 81%? I would say he's maybe closer to about a C plus as opposed to a B minus, but I'm not too upset with that rating. Now, on down up under this, we've got his draft projection projected to be a 6th-round pick. I think that he can potentially end up getting picked higher than that, but we'll talk about that towards the end. Now on down to his high school ratings, okay? ESPN and Rivals.com had him rated as a 4-star. Then 24/7 Sports had him rated as a 3-star. And some quarterback comparisons, Will Levis, who I don't really get that comparison too much. I think that Joe Milton is a much better athlete than Will Levis was, but I also think that Levis was more polished coming out of college than what Joe Milton is going to be entering into this year's draft. I think that he's definitely going to need to get in a team that's a perfect situation for him where he can maybe sit for 2 to 3 years and improve on his game. But if he does improve, then he could end up being one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Now, again, that's kind of a long shot because I do think that he has to improve dramatically in certain areas. But hey, I've seen crazier things happen. Now, the next 2 quarterbacks are Tanner McKee and Davis Mills. All right, now on to the NFL quarterback combine averages. We'll start off with the 40 times, and the quarterbacks are kind of in the middle towards the right in the blue. It says that the average 40 time is a 4.8, and we saw that NFLDraftBuzz.com is projecting Joe Milton to run about a 4.78. I think that he can run faster than that, okay? I think that he is, if he's a 4.7 guy, he's a low 4.7 guy. And, I could see him potentially trying to lose a little bit of weight before he enters into the combine this coming up week. Get down, maybe 5 pounds, get down to about like 230. And I think that he could potentially be a 4.6 type of a guy. And if he does run in the 4.6 on a laser, that's going to be huge for his draft stock. And I think that would automatically push him up a couple of spots, in the quarterback top 10 rankings. Now, average bench press by position, we see that the quarterbacks are listed kind of towards the left in the light blue. 22 reps is what they're saying. And I think that Joe Milton is going to get more than that because he's bigger than average size quarterbacks. And he's definitely going to be stronger. We know that he's strong as a bull. Average vertical by position, the quarterbacks are about in the same spot in that light blue. And it says that 31 inches is the average vertical for a quarterback. And on NFLDraftBuzz.com, they had him projected to get a 33-inch vertical, and I agree with that. I think that is about where Joe Milton is going to come in at in the combine. So, again, he's staying above all the averages so far. Now, for the 3-cone drill, the quarterback is right in the middle in the red. It says that a 7.1 is the average. He's definitely going to be doing better than that. I would say he's going to be closer to about the running back speed, and that's somewhere around like a 6'9", maybe even a lower 6'9", because he can move very well, and then he's so long. I think that can kind of help him out in drills like that. Now, the last one that they have on this website is the broad jump by position, and the quarterback is in the middle, kind of to the left in the purple, and it says 110.67 inches is what the average is. Joe Milton will definitely surpass that again. A lot of his testing numbers are going to be more towards the, true skill position players. I would say anywhere in between the running backs and probably the wide receiver range. That's about where Joe Milton is going to end up at. All right, so overall, Joe Milton is definitely going to be a project, but he's a project that I feel like all 32 teams are interested in seeing. Is it going to be worth them, bringing him into their organization to take on that project? Because he just has all of the talent, he has everything. Just a couple of little things that he needs to work on. Again, I think with the anticipation and with the touch. But if you give him 2 years in an NFL system, I think that he can get it figured out. Now, some of y'all probably saying, well, he's a 6-year senior. He hasn't really figured it out yet. But you just never know when that light's going to click on for anybody. It happens at different times for everyone. And I'm not giving up on Joe Milton. I don't think that he's going to be picked in the 6th round. I think that he still has the chance to be picked in the 4th or in the 5th round. And I've got more of a 4th round grade on Joe Milton just based off of the way that I'm projecting him to perform at the NFL Combine. All right, and now for the last player that we'll be talking about today at the NFL Combine is Jalen Wright. He's listed at 5'11", 210 pounds. The average size for an NFL running back is 5'10 and a half, 213 pounds. I do think that he'll try to put on a little bit more weight before he gets to the combine, just to be up over that 213-pound average. And he may come in just a shade short of 5'11". Sometimes these programs will kind of fluff the heights, okay? We talked about that early on. But you look at his stats over to the right, okay? And 7.4 yards per carry is the biggest deal to me. That's huge being in the SEC. We know that this is where the best competition is. And I know that every single team in the country is going to have their eye on Jalen Wright throughout the entire evaluation process leading up to the NFL draft. Now, over to his overall player rating listed at an 80.4. I think he's a lot better than that. I'd give him about like a low 90s, maybe like a 92 overall. He's a really, really good football player, and he's listed on this website at number 13 at his position. Now, I can tell y'all this. Daniel Jeremiah, who is an analyst over there for the NFL Network. He does a lot of the combine and the draft stuff. He said that he has Jalen Wright as one of his top 2 running backs in this entire draft, and I agree with him. Number 13, that's way too low. But again, you got to kind of take this website right here with a grain of salt on some of the stuff that they're talking about. Over to the right, we see that his 40 time is projected as a 4.31, and I tend to agree with that. He's a track guy. He's extremely fast. And if he can run a 4.31, then he will end up more than likely being the first running back taken in this year's draft, I believe. Now, let's kind of scroll down and let's see what else we have. Again, as always, to the right, we can see the top 10 players that they have at the running back position. But over here for his individual grades, the defense's rating versus Jalen Wright is 75%. And I think that that's probably pretty fair. Let's go on down to his rushing. They've got him listed at 91%. I like that. And then breaking tackles, they've got him at 92%. And, I like that too. I think a lot of times we tend to forget that Jalen Wright runs hard, man. And I mean, that's a really big deal for an NFL running back, especially for a young one. Now, I hope that his career will be long with the way, that he's going to be running hard. And I don't think that he's going to want to try to break tackles a whole lot on the next level just because he's not that big of a running back. I think that he's going to want to try to make people miss again so that he will have some longevity in his career. But down to his receiving, they've only got him at a 68%. That's kind of a joke. He should definitely be up somewhere in the 90s. I don't remember him really dropping any passes. So, I would say 90% for sure. And that's very important, obviously, for running backs in today's age because the ball is going to get thrown to pretty much everyone that's a skill position player on offense. And the running backs are going to get a lot of targets, whether it's on screens or some, like little dump out passes. They're going to be one of the quarterback's best friends. So it's going to be important that he can showcase his hands, on the field drills at the combine. Now, the next one is pass blocking. So 66%, I think that that's a joke as well. He did a great job, I believe, in pass protection as a running back. He was really good at it. I also think that Jabari Small was good at it. I don't know who was better, but I don't remember them really giving up too many sacks. And if they did, it was more of a bust as opposed to them just not being capable of making those blocks. So I would say that he should be somewhere, at least at about 85% on that. Now for run blocking, it's something that he doesn't, he hasn't really done in college, and he's not going to be doing much in the NFL, okay, unless it's like a jet sweep or some sort of a quarterback design run. But 58%, again, I don't agree with that because pass blocking is more difficult than run blocking is. If you're a good pass blocker, especially if you're a good athlete, okay, if you're like a skill position guy, then your run blocking is going to be even better. So I would say that for that one, it's going to be 85% plus. Now he's projected on this side to be a 5th round draft pick. We'll talk about that once we, get done with everything else. And he was rated a 3-star on ESPN, 24/7 Sports, and Rivals.com. A couple of running back comparisons is Tyler Algier, and he plays for the Falcons, so I know him pretty well. I like that comparison. I would just say that Algier is more of a physical back. Where we just talked about with Jalen Wright, he probably is not going to want to engage in trying to run through too many tackles because he's not that big. Algier is probably 10 to 15 pounds heavier than Jalen Wright is. So I really like that comparison. And then James Cook, I actually think that Jalen Wright compares a little bit more to a James Cook. He runs hard like an Algier, but he can kind of do a lot of different things like a James Cook. And then the last one is Rashawn Johnson. All right, so now for the NFL averages. For running back in the 40-yard dash, it's over there to the left in the green. It's a 4.53, and this is something that Jalen Wright is going to blow out of the water. He might end up being the fastest running back at the combine, and if he does, I'm telling y'all, if he ends up, running like a 4.35 or under, I do believe that he could potentially be the first running back taken because his film's going to look great as well. Now, onto the bench press. This is actually pretty important for a running back. It's not as important for the quarterbacks for sure, and it's not as important for the cornerbacks either. But the average for running backs is kind of to the left, okay? It's in like that grayish blue, and it says 20 reps. I think that Jalen Wright will be able to surpass that. I'm going to, go out on a limb and say that he's going to get about 23 reps. Now, on down to the average vert by position. It is kind of to the right in the middle in the green, and it's 35 inches. I do think that Jalen Wright will be able to surpass that. Like we talked about earlier, if you are a very fast player, it usually means that you're going to be very explosive. And, the times from your 40 will correlate to all the other testing metrics. And I do think that Jalen Wright could end up getting somewhere around, 36, 37, maybe even 38 inches. So on to the 3-cone by position. The running back is to the left in the blue, and it is a 6.99. I definitely think that Jalen Wright will be able to do better than that just because he's so fast. Now, he's not much of a make you miss out in open space type of a guy. He's much more of a straight line running back. But, I think that he's going to perform well in this 3-cone drill again because of his top line speed. And, he does a good job getting in and out of his breaks as well. Now, for the last one, it's going to be the broad jump. And the running backs are in the middle, kind of to the right in the dark blue, and it says 118.87 inches. Again, I definitely think that Jalen Wright will be able to surpass that, and he'll probably get somewhere closer to what the cornerbacks and free safeties, the secondary guys, are going to be getting. So I would say that he could end up getting about 121 inches or so. All right, so I've got a second to third round grade on Jalen Wright. He just has a great combination of speed, quickness, and he understands how to play football. Again, he can catch the football out of the backfield. He's going to be a really good blocker. He's going to do well in the off the field interviews and things like that. So I think that if he does end up performing in this combine coming up, that he's going to have a field day. He's going to blow the testing metrics out of the water. And we'll see several teams, okay, probably all 32 teams will be wanting to get some sort of a, closer look at Jalen Wright, whether that's at a personal workout or if it's going to be at his pro day in Knoxville. But yeah, he's definitely going to be a guy that will get drafted very high. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of our guys potentially get drafted. Again, I think that everyone will get drafted. And, biggest things for guys like Joe Milton is going to be how does he perform in the on the field drills as well. I don't think that we touched on that, but he definitely is going to have to show that he can hit those intermediate passes on a very consistent basis. If he doesn't throw a bunch of, crazy looking balls out there, then he's going to be a guy that could potentially work himself up into the third round because the, early projections are as many as 6 quarterbacks could be taken in the first round. And if that happens, then yeah, look out for Joe Milton to go a little bit higher than the 4th round. But that's going to be it for this video. And thank y'all so much for staying all the way to the end. And as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.